Folks, this is Kentucky Fathers, one of my several podcasts, and I'm not as consistent with this one as I am with the others, but I was really inspired to do it because not too long ago, my only child, my daughter Sarah, graduated from Northern Kentucky University. She earned a degree in social work, and then I saw these weird letters or symbols by her name in the program. I was thinking, well, what the heck does this mean? Come find out she had graduated summa cum laude, which means she had a grade point average of 3.9 and higher. So I said, oh, okay, that's great. That's good. And a little disappointed, though, at the event. Her mother, my ex-wife, treated me in a very nasty manner. And it got me to thinking about, boy, about what it means to be a father and co-parenting. I start reflecting on my own father. My father, Sarah's a third-generation college graduate in the family. Her grandfather's a college graduate. Her grandparents, on my side, college graduates. I'm a college graduate. Then she's third generation. But the generation before my father, they didn't get out of high school. And the generation before them, they were emancipated slaves. So I said, man, this is really something to see this. And, of course, just talked about over the years about how I did so much with that child. And before her mother contributed towards alienating me from her. And but still just reflected about fatherhood. And particularly started thinking a lot about my own father and the impact he played in my education and my upbringing. So I wanted to bring on somebody today, folks, Dexter Pitts. He's the author of I Am Pitts. That book is available at Amazon.com. If you haven't bought it, you are wrong. You'd get a copy. It's a great biography. It's a great autobiography. You need to read that. Not only read it, you need to read it, buy another copy, and share it with somebody. That would have been a great graduation gift, but it's a great gift for anybody at any time. And so I know he's a very reflective man, very thoughtful man. And so I wanted to bring him on and talk to him about fatherhood in general, some of his reflections on he's a father, and then whatever he wanted to share about his father and how his father impacted him. So, Dex, appreciate you coming on, bro.
Man, I always appreciate being on, brother.
All right. So, let's get started. I go about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And you are a military veteran. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. You served. And you didn't just serve. I served too, but I was in comfortable Fort Knox, man. Loving that food, going out on the weekends, having the ladies chase my ugly so-and-so because I had a, sergeant stripes. Oh, man, that was the life. But you actually, you're a real soldier. You were in combat. Is that not true?
That's absolutely true.
And got wounded, got a Purple Heart. But your father was a military guy. Is that right?
He was. He retired from Fort Knox as an E7 in, I think, 1998 or 1999.
Wow. Okay.
Tech mechanic.
Wow. Is that a coincidence? He's a military vet. You're a military vet. Is that a coincidence?
I wouldn't call it a coincidence because growing up, I wanted nothing to do with the military because we were always moving around. I would make friends and I would lose friends and have to make new friends again. So for me, I wanted nothing to do with the military, and I really didn't want to be anything like my dad just because I've always saw my dad. Now, he was super strict, a very, very authoritative figure, and very military. He's very stringent. Everything has to be dressed right, dressed. And my mom would always have to tell him, Zebedee, he is your son, not one of your soldiers. Wow. So she always had to reel him in because he was very hard on us. But at the same time, I'm glad he was very hard on us. And if you read my book, people will see, I haven't talked to my father in many years because of the incident that happened with my mother, in which my mother took her life because she was the victim of domestic violence at the hands of my father for 28 years. And my father was directly associated with her suicide and with the whole incident. So if you want to read that, you got to get the book to go further into that whole incident. But after that, for me, I realized that the type of father I wanted to be. And my father, although he has his negative qualities, every man does. Nobody's perfect. I
Yeah.
have my negative qualities as well that my kids and my wife would probably be like, he's not a good man in this area, but I
Hmm.
can't let that those negative qualities overshadow the wonderful things that my father did instill in me and did teach me.
Hmm. So you said now you said E7. E7 isn't that was staff sergeant or master
Sergeant
sergeant?
first class, sergeant first class.
Right. So I can imagine he's disciplined.
Oh, extremely.
Yeah. I was in the military. I know what that means. So yeah. But and again, at the time, you may not have liked it, but looking back on it, do you have a little more appreciation for it, or do you still have that just I can't stand that?
I have a lot more appreciation for it, and the fact that I now have two children of my own. I got a daughter that's 8, and I have a son that's just turned 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I am just like my father when it comes to implementing a lot of military culture and strategies with my children. I
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of the same mentality that my dad gave to me. But where we differentiate is my dad, the military is you mess up, you get punished. My dad
Right.
would never explain why. He would just, don't question why, you just do it. So
Okay.
for me, and my father was never very emotional. Being an older black man from Mississippi, growing up in the '60s and '70s, it was
Mm.
rough for him. So, I never got "I love you" from my father. I'm very hard on my kids. I have high expectations, but I also leave room for error. And I also tell my kids, I love you. And this is why I'm having you do this, or this is
Mm-hmm.
why I'm having you do it this way. Because if I don't tell them why, they're just going to assume that dad hates me. Dad wants
I
to
got
hurt
you.
me. And that's not the case.
Right.
I feel like we do ourselves a disservice as fathers because we don't necessarily explain everything we're doing.
Right. Right. Did your father ever talk about his background, like when he was a teenager or anything like
Never.
that? Wow.
Never,
Wow.
man. I talked to my grandparents recently, and like I said, I just recently started back talking to them, and haven't talked to them in years since my mother's suicide, but they were revealing to me things about my father growing up in Mississippi, and how he was one of the darker skinned guys in the family and how he was treated different by the other people, not necessarily in the family, but around town, and,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people don't realize that affects you. It affected me, but I just never realized, he's got trauma. We all got
Right.
trauma.
Right.
And unfortunately, I don't really, how he became the person he was in those negative areas. I
Mm-hmm.
see those areas in myself, and I try to do the exact opposite and run away from those negative parts of his life. Like he was just extremely controlling, and like with my wife, I do my best not to be controlling. If anything, I try to be supportive and encouraging. And
Right.
I would never ever put my hands on my wife because you don't hurt the people you love.
Right. 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 Yeah, I feel you, man. But it's unfortunate that he never really just opened up and said, "Hey, look, this is kind of stuff I experienced when I was in, at this age, this age." I mean, it's. I think a lot of men, and particularly black men, don't understand. They have a lot of lessons to give to us based upon their lives. Things they've gone through. I was astounded when like my father was telling me about how when he graduated from high school and Oberlin College wanted to recruit him, and at the time Oberlin College is one of the best colleges in the country, strong academically, and he didn't feel good enough to go to Oberlin, so he went over the Massachusetts, and I just found that so interesting that he viewed himself that way. The other things he would tell me. So I really want to. I say all that to say this. I really want to encourage fathers. Talk to your children, man.
You have
Let
to.
them, yeah. Talk to them. Let them know what you were like coming up. Now, in your situation, boy, I mean, what better way to quote unquote talk to your children than through a book? You
Yes.
know? Yeah.
They're the main reason why I wrote my book because everyone has a story. And if you
Yes.
die without telling your story, somebody's going to tell your story for you. And they're
Bingo.
not going to tell your story the way you would want it told. And
Right.
so people would learn to see you and perceive you through their eyes, not your own eyes, and how you see yourself.
Yeah.
And for me, when we were going through the riots here in Louisville in 2020, 2021, I knew I was like, man, if I die, My story dies with me, and my kids are only going to know me from how others perceive me.
Right.
And my father left me with a lot of questions as to why he thought the way he did. I mean, we didn't discuss anything. We never discussed politics. He would throw out little stuff here and there, like, no, this is why I don't like Democrats. And I never knew my father was a Republican until I
Right.
was like fresh out of the army boot camp and, going to college and, just like all of a sudden I
Right.
would just catch little nuggets here and there. And he
Yeah.
never really revealed himself to me. It
Right.
was, and I think that comes from being black and growing up in Mississippi. You have to
Yes.
be strong and put on a face because it wasn't a good time for black people in America then, and that becomes a part of your identity and your
Right.
culture. And it's like that with my grandparents, like my grandma, like anytime I had to stop talking to my grandparents because anytime I bring up my mom's issue, my mom's suicide, which my father was attributed to, they don't want to talk about it, don't want to deal with it.
Mm.
Just want to sleep it
Right.
under the rug. Well, we just got to move on. It's like, no, we don't move on. We have to discuss this stuff, and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And because it's uncomfortable, people want to just continue living in this make believe world where you just ignore it and sweep it under the rug. But eventually the bill comes due. You can't just sweep it under the rug every
Wow.
time.
Wow.
And,
That's,
and that's why I wrote my book also, because I want my kids to see, what I went through. I want my kids to know what it was like when I lost my mother to suicide and what I was thinking of how I wanted to kill myself in at one point in time. Because I don't want my kids to look at me and see that, dad's this perfect guy and that dad's got it all
yeah.
together and dad's done all
Right.
this. I need them to see the human side of me where I have failed and I have not thought of myself in such good ways and where I thought I was undeserving, because
Mm.
that is all part of the human experience,
Right.
especially as a father. Man, we're not Supermen. We're not. We,
Mm.
we want to think we are.
Right.
And I feel like we set our kids up for failure when we set these unrealistic expectations before them, and we have these unrealistic expectations for ourselves as well.
Yeah.
It's okay for a man to cry.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're crying about. If you're crying, man, somebody so and so said something mean about me, man. That's no,
Right.
no. People are gonna talk about you, but man, if you to lose a friend on the battlefield, you're supposed to cry. That's
Yes.
a human emotion, but we have gotten so bogged down in this country with, just making men not manly and making men so sensitive. We've gone in the complete opposite direction, and there's a fine balance to this thing. We don't have any balance right now. So if you're too sensitive, you're a sissy. But if you're too masculine, you're hurting yourself and you're hurting others because you're not embracing the human experience. You're trying to hide the human experience. You're
Right.
trying to hide your emotions, and that's not what we need. That's not what your kids need. And so that's
Right.
why I tell my kids now, as much as I can, I love them. I tell my daughter who has dark skin, you're beautiful, because I know what it's like to have dark skin in this world.
Mhm.
And the way you get treated by your own people sometimes,
Yeah.
you know?
Folks, this is Kentucky Fathers. I'm your host, and we're speaking with Dexter Pitts here today. He's the author of I Am Pitts, and we're talking about his fatherhood, his views on fatherhood, etc. Something I think that we need to hear more and more, need to do more and more, and that is, men, fathers coming forth and just talking about. Just talking about that issue of fatherhood, getting this all out there. Because as Brother Dexter just put out there, let me tell you something. Somewhere down the road, your kids are going to ask about you. They're
Oh,
going
yeah.
to they're going to come up. They're going to come up to you. I have all sorts of questions. I wish the one thing I always I only have really only one, maybe two regrets in my life, and one of them is I didn't talk to my father more because because now I have so many questions like, Dad, why did you go to this college and not this? Why'd you take this major? Not, where were you thinking about things like, during the King Jr. assassination, just all sorts of stuff. And I wish he had sat down. I had more to sit down so I can talk to him like that. But thank God, someone like Dexter Pitts, he's put out a book, I Am Pitts, and now his children have that great blessing to be able to read something. Maybe later on, go to him, hey, Daddy, I didn't know you did this. What
Yeah.
happened here? What's going on here? I didn't know that. So that's great stuff. Tell us a couple of positive things about your father. A couple of things positive you want to
And
share
that
with us.
that man knows how to work, and that is where I get my work ethic from. I mean, My father was never home a lot because he was always, when he was in the army, always out in the field. And then not just that, it was when he retired, he went to work right away. He was driving trucks. That
Mm,
man knew how to work, he knew how to hustle, and he knew how to save money. And those are aspects that I have in me now. And also, my father being from a black man from Mississippi, we never really discussed politics or racial things, but I remember we had this incident. It's in the book. We were somewhere deep in Tennessee when he was driving the truck, and I was in like high school, and we came across this old white guy in this store, and I tried to order food, and he told me, we don't have any food here for you, and I look around and everybody in the restaurant's white except us. And I tell my dad, he says he don't have food, and my dad gives me this look. He's like, I know what's going on here. Let's get in the truck. Let's go. And I'm distraught, and my dad, instead of taking this moment to bash white people, instead of taking this moment to play the victim, my dad tells me, son, there are going to be people in this world that don't like you because of how you look and the color of your skin. That don't mean nothing, and that's when he laid a good solid foundation for me of, be confident in yourself. And if you're willing to work hard, you can and will accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish.
mm,
So that's why I say, as much as I want to bash my father for the things that happened with my mother, he instilled a lot of good in me. And that can be, like I said, that can be said about any man, yourself, me, my grandparents.
right.
I mean, I come from a family of hard workers. My grandfather, this man was a sharecropper for 60 years in Mississippi.
Lord have mercy.
Even after he lost his leg to diabetes, the man still worked.
Mm,
And so that is something that is implanted in me, and I work all the time now, and probably too much. It's just ingrained in me, and that is something I cannot thank my father enough for, because I see so many people now. Even people don't realize I'm retired from the military. I
mm-hmm,
get a nice check from the military. I don't have to work,
mm,
but my psychology, in my mind, and what's been ingrained in me says, no, you have to work. I
right,
need to work, and
mm,
that's what I do. And that's the example I want to set for my kids, like my father set for me. You ain't going to accomplish nothing at home sitting on your butt. Then you can start whining, man, the white man ain't taking care of us, and the white man, this and that. At the end of the day, that don't matter. If you're not getting up, hitting your job and doing what you got to do, you're not going to survive, man. And I remember
amen.
there was always this old saying I used to hear all the time growing up. And I hated it, but as I got older, I understood. It said, if you want to starve a Negro to death, just put food stamps under his work boots. I've used to hear that all the time, and I was like, why would they say that? And then
Right.
as I got older, I started realizing why people in my family would say that, because my family is a family of hard workers, and no matter who was in office, what party was in control,
Right.
Pitt's family was always going to eat, because the Pitts family know how to hustle and work.
There you go. Amen. Amen. Brother, we're going to need to wrap it up. But look, before we do, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the question. Pretend that I'm a young black man, just got married, wife's pregnant. What are two or three things you're going to say to me about fatherhood?
I'm going to say to you about fatherhood. One, you have to set the example to your children by how you treat your wife.
Mm,
That's going to be one of the most important things, because if you raise your children in dysfunction, your children are going to become dysfunctional.
wow.
And if you beat your wife and you cuss your wife, what do you think they're going to do to her? They're going to do the same thing. So you are the example. Two, you have to be grounded in something as a father and as a man. And I believe, I'm a Christian, and I believe in, Jesus Christ, and that's, for me, I have to have the Bible to stay grounded. And that's not saying that I'm the best Christian, but that's saying that I have a foundation in that. And that really helps me in my everyday life. And like I said, I don't read my Bible every day, but I know a lot of lessons and a lot of passages from the Bible that help reinforce me and strengthen me, because it's hard in this world as a man, because you have to carry the weight of your family and the weight of your world on your shoulders sometime. But when you have Jesus Christ in your life, you don't have to bear all of that on your own, you
Amen.
know. And the last thing I will say to you as a young father is this: show your children who you really are.
Mm,
Don't hide who you are from your children. And I understand that at certain ages, children don't need to know everything, but when you're hurt, be hurt. It's okay to show your kids that you're crying, that you're emotional, and that you have emotions. It's okay to be a real person in front of your children. Yes, be selective in some things, but don't make your kids believe that you're Superman, because that one time you do break down, they're going to be wondering what happened. And you know what? If you're not the example for your children, somebody else is going to be the example for them.
Man, I appreciate it. Appreciate it very much.
I appreciate you having me on as always, man.
Yeah, and just want to say to the listeners, hey, we're going to probably have this posted at booktalkwithcorbin.com. We have sections there for the Book Talk podcast and the Invest Now podcast and the Kentucky Fathers podcast. So check it out there. Check out this interview there. And please share this podcast interview with as many people as possible, particularly fathers, young and old, black or white, regardless. Just if they're a father, share it with them. And brother, we're going to have you come on again and talk about your book a little bit more. I Am Pitts, available at Amazon.com. Things are going well.
IamPitts.com as well.
All right, so you also have your own website,
Yes,
IamPitts.com. Great.
Yes,
all right.
correct.